Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are going to be making these complex topics of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable to the everyday person. Thank you so much for tuning in. We ask that if you are listening on audio only, that you take a moment to leave us up to a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It will help to get the show out to more people. And before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder to head down to the show notes and check out my free resources as well as Carrie's free resources. We also do have courses on a variety of topics. If you are hoping to dive deeper, Carrie and I both have practitioner courses available as well for anyone who wants to begin to bring these topics to their clients and help them to implement these strategies into their daily lives. So check those out. We also have a co-taught course called Quantum Fertility that is available that allows people and practitioners to work on their fertility using these principles of quantum biology and circadian biology. Again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's show, whichever one you are doing. And let's go ahead and jump into it now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. Today, we want to talk about this whole night owl thing. Is this a thing, Carrie? Can we talk about this?
Listen, I want to say that I think that this has been, most people utilize this as an excuse to stay up late, right? And that in the vast majority, 99% of the people that I've worked with in clinical practice think they're night owls, but they have inappropriate light signaling to signal nighttime and darkness. Right. And when they start to work on that, you see it might not be up sudden, but it can be a very gradual, but you see what's called a phase shift in their bedtime to fall asleep at a circadian appropriate time, which is typically, there might be the night owl is going to bed at 10 p.m. Whereas maybe the early bird is going to bed at 7:30 or 8, right? Exactly. Right. Exactly. So that's the window of time we're talking about here. Not like, I can't fall asleep until 2. If you can't fall asleep until 2 and we assess things like your melatonin level, it means that your melatonin is tanked at night. We can go into that. And when we test it, you're producing melatonin until 10 o'clock in the morning, right? Like it's through the
That's
roof.
what I've seen. That's what I've seen is they're making melatonin until 10 o'clock in the morning. And that is not what you
no, because that is produced in response to darkness and cortisol at that point is produced in response to daylight, right? And so this is where I highly disagree with the statistic that 30% of people are night owls, because none of this takes into consideration the actual light signaling of bedtime, as opposed to just when someone naturally says that they fall asleep. And also, I think even in quote unquote night owls, I've seen so much literature literally taking these individuals camping for 2 to 7 days, and they resync back up with a natural day-night signaling. So, I mean, a lot of stuff points to the fact that for the vast, vast majority of people, night owls is something that's potentially means that someone needs to assess the light hygiene at night.
Yeah, because I just had this discussion this morning, blue light in particular is the primary signal that comes in through the eye. We have the melanopsin receptors in the eye. We have the melanopsin receptors on the skin that gives the body information about the time of the day, right? And so we're naturally supposed to, the blue light starts to appear at sunrise in the perfect amount, which is balanced with the red, the near infrared, all the other colors. And it gives the brain information of let's start slowly making cortisol. Let's start turning on these processes. Let's reset the clock. It's in response to blue light. And what are people doing when they're night owls or staying up late? They've got overhead lights on. They've got TVs on. They've got phones, which is basically the same amount of Kelvin as what it would be in the middle of the day, right? In June. No less, right? So we're not even talking about a winter middle of the day. We're talking about noon in June is the signal that we're sending to the brain. And so when you actually look at the scientific literature on circadian rhythms, on light and on the brain and that hormonal response that's happening, it's the light is the biggest Zeitgeber, which we can maybe talk about Zeitgebers a little bit in the scope of the conversation, but light's the biggest Zeitgeber, the biggest signal to give the body information about the time of day and the time of year, right?
Yeah. We'll definitely talk about Zeitgebers for sure, because there's a lot of ways that we can, if this is you, if you're a night owl, there's a lot of ways that you can use different timing mechanisms in the body to sync back up to an earlier wake time and an earlier bedtime. What's interesting too, when you dive into the research on night owls, they're actually more likely to have poor work performance, increased mortality, mood and mental health disturbances, mental health challenges. So yeah, I mean, like all of these things point to, well, maybe you claim that you're a night owl, right? But is that ideal for you? And is that leading to your optimum and your best health? And so, just know I've worked with so many people, and we can phase shift your rhythm earlier and earlier and earlier, so that you can actually improve so many aspects of your mental and physical health. Yeah. And so, I don't know, where do you want to go, Sarah, from there?
I mean, I have to say clinically, I completely agree. I think that 99% of the people that have come through my programs and my private group, they have shifted from being this chronic night owl and having basically cortisol release at the wrong time of day. They've been able to shift that when we do some pretty dang simple things, right? It's not super hard. And I think the biggest thing, I mean, maybe we could start with like the steps people could take to start phase shifting. And I always say starting at bedtime is easier than like forcing someone to get out at sunrise. And ultimately that's what we want to do, but that can be really hard for someone if they're have this chronic, like, I'm going to stay up late and do all, they just have this routine and all of these things with their light hygiene that need to be improved upon. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's exactly the way I tackle that. It's very daunting for someone who goes to bed at 2 a.m. to all of a sudden think that they have to wake up at sunrise on a regular basis, right? And so what we need to do is be very diligent about blocking the artificial light at sunset. Right at sunset, we wear the orange tone blue blockers because if we were living outside, right, if we were camping, say, as the sun sets, then the blue light receptors in my eyes are not picking up any more signals. And so that's the signal that darkness is approaching. And so that's when my pineal gland is going to start to make a lot of melatonin that, it goes, elevates, stays elevated through the night, and then drops fairly abruptly come the dawn, right? Those early daylight hours, because that's when we're supposed to start to elevate cortisol. And so if you can consistently block that blue light from your environment, from the artificial light in your environment with the orange tone blue blockers, that's going to be a key thing to start to make that melatonin. The secretion of that melatonin from the pineal gland into your bloodstream is the signal your body is picking up on of nighttime. And the more consistently you can have that happen, and the earlier in the evening that you can have that happen in conjunction with sunset and those a few hours after sunset, the more likely you are to phase shift when your body wants to fall asleep. Yep. Now, I'm going to say that can be oftentimes in my night owls, they are individuals who need orange tone and red tone blue blockers. Yeah. Because I tell them to put the red tone blue blockers on 60 minutes or so before their desired bedtime. Because you go from orange up until that point, then you put the red ones on, because the red ones don't just block the blue, they block the blue, most of the green, and they really significantly dim the light entering your eyes. So make sure you're doing this in a safe space, right? Where you feel like, you're not going to trip and fall down the stairs, right? Exactly. But this would be someone who would help to, because that when you block the green and the blue and any form of brightness, try staying awake. That's my thing. Try staying awake in that particular type of a light environment. It's damn near impossible.
Yeah, that's the thing when people start doing this, when they actually get the blue blockers, because that's sometimes an obstacle. They're like, I'll do all the other stuff, but I don't want to do the blue blockers. I get them to just go to Amazon and get a pair of Spectra 479, because I know you've tested those. I've tested those. So that's an inexpensive, low.
They work just fine. Yeah.
They work fine. They're just not as like comfortable or attractive as like.
I think they're very comfortable. I just think they're not. Okay. I think they're ugly as heck.
I I like my really like nice blue blockers, but I mean, they work, right?
They
So
work great. They
the
work great.
spectras work great. It's a low risk investment, but I will have people that are in my private group and they're like, oh my gosh, am I supposed to be exhausted at 8 p.m.? What is this? I'm like, go to bed. Go to bed.
Go to
You
bed.
probably have a major sleep debt. Your body is probably like needing to do all this repair, dying to make melatonin. So we can start to do some autophagy and apoptosis, and we could start to see your body healing, repairing, and getting better. So if you're tired, go to bed, like just do it, because the sleep, and people are worried because they're like, oh, I'm going to wake up early in the morning, if they start going to bed earlier. Getting the sleep earlier in the night is better than going to bed at midnight and getting this, the same amount of sleep,
waking till
right?
8 a.m.
Yeah.
It is, because what we need to know is like, we have timing. We're designed to like sync up and release certain pathways and chemicals in the body. So as melatonin is reaching this high point, that's also when cortisol should be at its low point, right? That's a signal that the brain is looking for to signal sleep onset. The other thing that the brain is looking for to signal sleep onset is the buildup of a chemical in our brain called adenosine. Maybe people have heard of ATP. ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate, right? And so as we use up our ATP throughout the day, right, as we're working through natural metabolic function, we naturally build up what's called adenosine in the brain. And the adenosine has receptors that it docks in. Now, I don't believe fully in the receptor docking thing. I believe that a lot of it works on resonance, but that's for a different topic. The research says docking, so we'll go with that for now. Adenosine docks in these receptors, and then that's another signal. So the saturation point of enough adenosine docking in the receptors, then those three things sync up. Enough melatonin, low cortisol, buildup of adenosine, boom. That is when you physically can't stay awake anymore. That is sleep onset right there. That's supposed to be in conjunction at around, let's say 10 p.m., maybe in the summer, maybe a little earlier in the winter because you get more darkness in the winter. That syncs up then with when human growth hormone starts to get released, which is our prime repair hormone. Because the first 4 hours of sleep are dedicated to physical body tissue repair, right? We're physically going through autophagy. We're repairing the cells, repairing any damage, right? And so you have adequate melatonin at that point and adequate human growth hormone to run so much physical tissue repair while we sleep at night. And that gets thrown off if all of a sudden my body is going to want to release human growth hormone at 10 p.m., but my melatonin is really too low and my cortisol is super elevated and I'm not asleep. So I'm not going to get into deep tissue repair. I'm not into those deep waves of sleep, those deep delta waves of sleep. It just doesn't sync up, right? And so we're really designed to sync. And yeah, there might be some, like we said, a 2-hour wiggle room in there, but not a 2 a.m. sleep time, not a 1 a.m. sleep time. That indicates that we've had way too much artificial late at night, too much caffeine, because caffeine competes for the adenosine receptor. Yeah. And so those things are just things that you can assess. And I've seen people who have cut out, like people didn't think they drank a lot of caffeine, 2 or 3 cups of coffee a day, right? But I've seen them then cut it out and all of a sudden their sleep improves drastically.
Yeah, that's been my experience. Is the HRV is the biggest for me whenever I'm like totally off the caffeine, and it has to be for a good 60 days before I can see this. If I've gotten back into the caffeine addiction, I have to come off of it for 60 days. And then all of a sudden there's a point where my HRV completely like doubles. I mean, I'm like, oh my gosh, so some people are like, I quit coffee for a month and I felt no difference. I'm like, you might need to give it a little bit more time. And I'm a fast metabolizer of caffeine. Like I've done the genetics on it. I'm a quote unquote fast metabolizer, but there's biology that comes into play as well, that we all have similarities. And that's where I think this whole night owl conversation is just like super flawed, is like, we all have a suprachiasmatic nucleus that hooks to the hypothalamus that is informed by blue light.
Right.
And you might be really attached to this night owl thing, but you still have that same biology that everybody has. And again, we want growth hormone, melatonin secreting at the same time. So we're getting into the deep tissue repair, autophagy, apoptosis. And so these I hate to say it's a one size fits all, but it's an overarching, it's our biology, right? As human beings, we're not nocturnal animals. We're not rats.
Yeah, that's exactly it. We're not nocturnal. If we were to give probably a more accurate percentage, I would say maybe 3%, maybe 3% are literally able to go to bed between midnight and 1 a.m., right? To be have a later sleep onset. But no, not even the 30% just blows my mind. And, having worked with so many people, it's just, the phase shift, and be patient, because we're phase shifting your circadian rhythm. If you like we said, if you go camping for a week, it will happen. And oftentimes in camping, you have to make sure there's no artificial light, your cell phone's not shining in your face, right? Those sorts of things. But it'll happen a lot faster because you're also much more connected to the circadian fluctuations in the Earth's magnetic field as well, right? That you're going to key in on as another Zeitgeber, if you will, timekeeper. You're more likely to have body temperature low in the middle of the night, or maybe around 4 o'clock in the morning, which is ideal, right? The body is keying in on all of these things. When you're in a modern living environment, and step one is mitigate the artificial light at night. Mm-hmm. Step two would be like paying attention to, when do you start your first meal of the day, right? Are you fasting until 2 o'clock in the afternoon, right? I mean, that again pushes your circadian signaling back further. Mm-hmm. When are you exercising? When is your body temperature reaching its high point versus reaching its low point? All of these things are timing mechanisms that the body is keying in on. And most people are very responsive to orange tone blue blockers. Mm-hmm. If they're not responsive to orange tone blue blockers, it's orange plus red. Mm-hmm. Then that's where we have to if that's not responsive, then we have to get a little more nuanced with meal timing, exercise timing, a cold plunge, perhaps, things like that. Mm-hmm.
And then also, like, what are you doing? Like, are you reading something or involved in something that's like bringing dopamine levels up? Are you like, also there's the social aspect of it as well. Are you talking to your partner? Are you like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. Are you at home resting, relaxing, being quiet, maybe doing a warm bath? Or are you like stimulating your mind through something that you're reading or something that you're like working on? Like there's those like social cues that can also be Zeitgebers as well. And if you're like having these highly stimulatory, like I got in a fight with my husband the other night at 10 o'clock at night. And I was not even mad about the fight so much as I was like that we're having a fight at that time of the day. Cause I was like, this is totally going to screw up my circadian rhythm for the night. Because I'm like,
and my mitochondrial function for the morning. Thanks a lot.
Mad. I'm just like mad at this whole situation right now. Like, I can forgive you and move on and it's going to be fine. But I'm just angry that you like decided to have this fight like at this time of the day, because this is a very circadian unfriendly time of the day to be having this conversation.
You're ramping me up, man. Alternate nostril breathing. Here we go.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would still look at that too.
But it's true. I mean, I used to artificially, before I knew this, I artificially kept myself up reading mystery novels.
Murder mysteries.
Right. Like I can't put it down. I can't put it down. Like I had this feeling in my belly, like, wow. Now I look at it and I'm like, holy cow. I was like literally embodying that story, right? And stuff like that. It's I detached myself from those sorts of things, but yeah, you can really keep yourself hyped up. What movie are you watching, or what type of music are you listening to, or all of those sorts of things. In the same way that we don't take a baby and just plop it down at night and be like, okay, night. Like we go through a routine, right? We change a diaper. Maybe we put some magnesium lotion on the feet, rock a little, let's sing a little song, pat, 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 like there's a routine, a wind down routine that then becomes anticipatory. It's like they start to anticipate, okay, this is the onset of sleep, right? I can relax. I can get my body into that state where I can kind of let go. We need the same thing, right?
Yep.
Yes. Could I give someone 5 milligrams of melatonin and they would be boom out like a light? Yeah.
Yeah. Not everyone though, because then there's the people like me that I used to have this completely opposite reaction to melatonin where it would literally keep me up the entire night. So
nervous system.
Yep.
Or you get it and people have the wildest dreams ever,
That's
things
me
like that as
too.
well.
Either it
Yeah.
keeps me awake or just the crazy dreams that you're like, what in the heck is like, how did that even happen? I've heard that from a lot of people that melatonin gives them like ridiculously terrible dreams.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that a lot too, actually.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so what we don't want to be, I hope what we're sounding is we're sounding encouraging, that if you're a night
Yeah.
owl,
Yes.
right? I don't want to,
Yeah.
we don't want to be controversial in any
No.
capacity, but we want to share our clinical experience with many, many night owls,
Yep.
you know? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. And that's, I had somebody, a husband and wife that recently came into my community and they were having a ton of health problems. Number one, there was a lot of extra weight that that's what usually gets people are like, I can't lose this weight. This is just driving me crazy. I'm uncomfortable. But then there were other issues, right? Like there were starting to be some heart issues. There were starting to be some like serious health issues. And there was a chronic pattern of 20 plus years of the two of them together in their marriage staying up till 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, working and I'm like, that has to stop. Like you have to shift your work time to the day. Like you can't be doing this if you want to fix these health issues. Like, and I'm the wrong person. I'm definitely the wrong person to try to get to give the stamp of approval for working on your computer until 4 o'clock in the morning. Like,
no, it's a hard no. No,
absolutely not.
here's why you feel productive though. You
Mhm.
feel productive. Like the tip, there's like, I want you to, if this is you, I want you to become aware, because there's typically a time of night, if you're a night owl, where you feel physically your body is tired, but
Mhm.
mentally you're wired.
Yep.
And that's where you feel like, okay, well, I'm just gonna be productive, right? I can't actually let my brain shut down. So I'm gonna
Get all this stuff
work
done.
on my computer, do the dishes, whatever, fold the laundry. And that feels like then a productivity period. And that
Mhm.
becomes an ingrained pattern.
Mhm.
But if I tell people, if they listen to that first sign of fatigue, especially then as if they are blocking the artificial light as well, they'll realize their body is asking for bedtime a lot earlier than it
Mhm.
ever was, than it ever was, than they ever anticipated, right? Any of us who have had little babies or kids in general, and you try to keep them up for some reason, and you think that then it's going to make their sleep, they'll sleep later, right? No, that's
Ever.
never.
Ever.
But when you catch that first little bit of sleep onset, and I'm like, 5 p.m. Oh, I can't put you down at 5 p.m. You're going to be up like the 5 p.m. Best night of sleep ever, right? But as opposed to like, let me keep you up until 8 or something. Like
Nine.
that becomes a disaster at that point. And so it's very similar with us. If we
Yeah.
can start to engage and go to sleep in that first onset signal,
Mhm.
that's when the body naturally gets into this beautiful rhythm. And that rhythm then allows this nice 8 hour or so window of time. And
Mhm.
I want people then to also reverse the idea that a 4:30 wake up time, if they've gotten 8 hours of sleep, say, is
Yeah.
pathological.
Right.
It's been considered the golden hour in so many different cultures around the world, because it is a moment of peace in
Mhm.
their life. It
I
is a
do.
moment of
If I wake up, I'm meditating, I'm praying, I'm like vision casting. Like it's a very
yes,
spiritual time that you can tap
yes.
into, like,
And
yeah.
you can actually, that's the perfect time in my experience to lucid dream too, right? Which I think is a form of creativity and awareness. And it's like, you're able to, it's like, I tell myself, it's almost like I view it as oh, okay, good. Like I've gotten enough sleep and now I get this opportunity. I know how to kind of go into it. It's almost like I call it this fuzzy zone. It's like where, okay, I don't know. It's like almost like between particles, if you will, between pixels. Like you can kind of enter this fuzzy zone and then get into these really fun dream states.
Mhm.
And so, like, that's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
That's cool stuff.
Yeah.
And so I encourage people to not have that fear of, well, if I go to sleep at 8, I'll wake up at 4.
Right.
And that's a problem. It's like, no, that's an opportunity. You got 8 hours of sleep. Now you got 2 hours to visualize, pray, do some gentle breath work,
Mhm.
whatever it might be.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's not necessarily a bad thing. And if you have a really bad sleep debt, which I think most people do at this point, a lot of people will sleep right through,
Yeah,
So
for sure.
it does happen and it's not a bad thing. But a lot of people, once you start kind of doing this work, they're literally just going to sleep through. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it, I don't know, it feels, I've never had one person say, oh, I'm so bummed that I don't go to sleep at 2 a.m. anymore.
I missed out on so much stuff. Yeah, exactly. And maybe we can talk a little bit about, so I definitely want to talk about the food a little bit more and that how that's a zeitgeber and why we shouldn't be eating dinner late, why we shouldn't be, we got to look at the food, but also I want to talk about teenagers because that's a question that comes up a lot
Yeah.
in my community is like, well, I have a teenager and like now the school system wants to shift the school to a later time in the district because teenagers have a different circadian rhythm than the rest of us. I'm like, no, they don't. No, they do not. So
I
let's
know.
maybe just
I looked at some of that research and I'm like, do they actually have a later circadian rhythm, or are we just testing teenagers who are on screens all
the
the time,
time
or like literally
they
sleeping
stay
with
up late. When I
AirPods
was a
in, or
teenager, I would sneak out of the house. Like I did. Yeah. I mean, I would wait till 11 o'clock at night. We'd sneak out of the house. We'd go like go to Dunkin' Donuts to get juice or something stupid. Like I wasn't like doing anything bad. I really felt like just wanted to be out, we just wanted to do stuff. So I'd like jump out the window and so like teenagers are they maybe not doing that, but a lot of them are like on their screens watching TV, playing video games, they're gaming until late night. Like this is a thing that wasn't a thing when you and I necessarily were teenagers.
yeah,
Um,
I think actually there comes a certain window of time in the teenage years where teenagers they
they
do
need
need
more
more
sleep.
sleep.
Yeah, they need
Right.
more sleep.
It's not
Yeah,
because they need to go to sleep later. They need to
right.
go to sleep at a very similar
Earlier,
time and then just sleep more,
longer.
right?
Yeah, yeah,
Sleep longer. And
yeah.
so I'm just wondering if that's just being confused a little bit
I
there
think
in terms of that information, because if anything, they need absolutely more sleep. I believe I'm trying to remember because I was reading some studies, interesting studies, frankly, on various school districts
Mhm.
who did shift their start their school day a little bit
Yep.
later, and they found that extra sleep did things like improved GPA, improved attendance, improved SAT scores, like interesting metrics for sure.
Yep.
But it's not designed. You're not designed to stay up an hour later so you can then sleep. You're designed to go to bed and get a really good chunk of time, because that's when a teenage brain and body really needs
And
that
repair.
extra little chunk of sleep. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I've got a 16-year-old and she'll be 17 in December. So I have a teenager and she is autistic. So a lot of kids with autism, they have chronically low levels of melatonin. That's a correlation there. But if I don't let her, we do have an iPad for her that is not on 5G or anything like that. I just have it on airplane mode. Like we've got all the setup. So she's downloaded all the videos she likes and whatever, listens to me
red screen, right? All the things.
screen, the
Yeah.
whole thing. But even with the red screen, it'll stimulate her. And it's like 8 o'clock, the iPad goes away, like or 7:30 some nights if she's real amped up from it. I'm like, it's got every screens, everything's got to go, TV off. We're just going to sit and chill and relax. My husband will be like,
Mhm.
girls' time. And then her and I will just kind of just sit on the couch and just kind of hang out. I might read a book to her with the little clip on light, but she wants to go to bed within 30 minutes of me taking away the red, which is on red. I can't even
Mhm.
imagine if it was like bright blue like everyone else. But like within 30 minutes of that iPad going away, even though it was already red, taking the stimulation away, she's ready to go to sleep.
Yeah,
Like she
totally.
wants to go to bed at 8:30 a lot of nights, even in the summertime. And now it's getting darker a little bit later. She'll still like right when it hits darkness, she still is like, all right, I'm ready to go to bed.
Mhm.
And she's a teenager. So
Yeah,
with
exactly.
someone who supposedly has low melatonin levels, but
No,
yeah,
anecdotal things like that are important because people need to see that it's not always what they've been told, right?
right.
I believe that 100%. I'm not surprised by the taking the screen away, even on red, right? What I've read about screens, regardless of the wavelengths of light coming through them, we call them small screens in our
Uh-huh.
family, right? And it's like no more small screens. The dopamine, it's
Dopamine.
a real thing, right? It's a real
Exactly.
thing, and so that
Dopamine blocks melatonin. Like we
exactly.
know that. Yeah.
Right. And so you need to, there comes a point if the kids are on screens of some sort that we say small screens down. And then sometimes we'll put on, like last night, we put on the Iowa versus LSU women's Elite Eight game. because I love basketball. I played women's basketball, right? I mean, it's and some whole family likes it. And so yeah, we had it on, screen protected, eyes protected, right? But that type of a stimulation, I hate to say it, it's so different. I mean, that's that's proving true. It's a very different dopamine stimulus. There's still a dopamine stimulus, but it's a very different one compared to be like, and not to mention auto scroll like that one, or infinite scroll. What is it? Infinite scroll, where you can just keep going. Like there's so many things built into our small screens and the way we use them now, or maybe not because we chose to, but the way they've been designed for us to use.
They're designed for us to be addicted to them.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
All of it is like these apps, they addict us. Like I am still guilty of it. I'll go on Instagram, like I'm going to post something and go. And then like an hour later, I'm like, what the heck did I just do? Like what happened? Like I get so mad. I just lost an hour of my life because these apps, they are literally like, they get to know you and they're like, how can we keep her on this app for longer? And if you are a creator, that's what you always are having to like think of this content that's going to hook people to watch more of it, right? Like it's like a whole crazy ass game. And so you have to be smarter than your phone. You have to be smarter than this technology and know that it's designed to addict you, and you have to draw boundaries and have limits with it. And you're like 5 bajillion times better with it than I am, Carrie.
I put that high.
I want to get on your level, but
I don't know. I've just done some inner work, I'll put it, the past year and a half or so, that's really allowed me to create a lot of space with that sort of stuff. And so, but it's not easy. It takes the work, right? In terms of being like, doesn't serve me, responding to that comment, doesn't serve that person, doesn't serve me, right?
Anybody. I think even Huberman talked about it closing a dopamine loop. When somebody leaves a comment and you respond back, it closes a dopamine loop. And so,
and it doesn't, but that closing the dopamine loop isn't a good thing, right?
It's not a good thing. If you just leave it,
the loop. Yeah.
Right. You feed the loop. Like, so if you just like leave it, you're like, one of my friends always talks about like, you think about, and this is what I think about with comments. And I try to like, when I'm like, I really want to tell this person how I feel, but I'm not going to do it. Because you think about like, it takes 2 hands to clap. And like, what if one hand goes away? Like it's just doing that. So when I try to like go there in my brain with comments, I'm like, okay, all right.
There you go.
Let's do this today. We're just waving our hand. Like, that's it. It's just one hand waving there like an idiot, So there's
that's funny
psychology to it.
Yeah, there is. I mean, it does. It's not. Yeah. I mean, you and I have done it enough to be like, I can provide as much detailed information as I possibly have in my brain, and it won't matter.
It's not going to
some individuals.
Somebody makes a comment like that, they're committed to their opinion. They're not going to change it because of anything that you say. Like it just.
The number of times I don't know if I've said this on this podcast, but I've probably mentioned this to you behind the scenes. The number of times I offered to some of these people, like I would say to
Zoom.
To Zoom. I was like, oh, I'd love to hear your take on this. Let's do a private Zoom. You got 30 minutes, 20 minutes to chat. Maybe we can share information. Not one person took me up on that.
I can't believe you did that.
I'm open-minded. You got other information? Send it my way. I'm not like, listen, I'm way more open-minded than I've ever been in my life. Let's just put it that way. And so I'm fine if you want to teach me something. And I'm not one person. They just wanted to be contrarian. So, that's okay. That's just a reflection. And I choose not to respond anymore.
Yeah. And I think this, again, like the night owl conversation can be a very like polarizing topic because people, again, they're like addicted to this, I'm productive at night, this kind of this story that they have around being a quote unquote night owl. And I don't know what this 3% that you think, like, what do you think that's due to? If there really are like 3% of people that are night owls and somebody's listening, like maybe I'm in the 3%, like
someone had to tend the fire, right? Someone had to make sure that nothing was happening in their community, right? I mean, so they're tribe, right? So I think that there is, I think 3% might even be generous. So, I mean, I think that there are people who needed to tend towards being able to do that.
What mechanism is different in those people, do you think then?
Perhaps a delayed buildup of adenosine, That's my take on it, because in those individuals, I don't know, in those individuals, they would have the natural circadian signaling of melatonin and cortisol, right? So I haven't looked into great details on it. But my thing is, like, if you try all of these things and you still want to go to bed at 2 a.m., like you feel like that is your perfect bedtime, and you like to sleep in from 2 until 10, and that makes you feel really, really good, like that is fine, right? Like, I'm not good, I don't judge that, I don't care. Like, if that's how you want to design your life, and you don't have any health issues, and you just living your best life and feel super good, okay, that's fine. Maybe that's you, that maybe you are. But like you said, what oftentimes happens with people, and this is true of night owl, this is true of a diagnosis, an identity is developed around it. They claim an identity to, sometimes it's a pathology, right? Like a disease state, right? And that's just not, I don't resonate with that. Mm-mm. I want to claim, I want to resonate the most thriving state of health I possibly can: mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health. And so it just doesn't resonate with me to claim an identity with something, especially if that something has the potential to cause health harms, which, that night owl behavior, it mimics shift work. It mimics jet lag. I mean, that's been compared in the research. And so we know what happens with jet lag. We know what happens with shift work, especially.
Been to be a carcinogen, correct?
Right. Exactly. And so,
that's probably what we're going to get asked in the comments of, what do we do with a shift worker? Maybe we could do a whole separate episode on that, because
we got to get Max for that, right?
Yeah, we should bring Max in.
Let's talk to Max. I mean, having been a shift worker himself, right? And understanding this quantum stuff from such a profound level, he'd be a great person to talk to for that.
Yeah, Max Gulhane, if anyone's like, who are they talking about? Dr. Max. He's been on my podcast before, on the Evolving Wellness podcast.
Yeah, we've been on his. Yeah, he's good. I've been on his podcast, regenerative health podcast. He's just a lovely person, lovely human being.
Yeah.
So it'd be great. I'm certain if you check out his podcast, I wonder if he's probably done some on
I think he has done some short episodes on shift work.
Yeah. I highly encourage that. And it might be unusual what he says in terms of things like fasting during your shift, right? Ketosis. Right. Ketosis, things like that. So, so just do be aware, but, the potential dangers of shift work are real, especially now that we're not just under artificial light, we're under artificial light and high amounts of non-native EMFs typically in those environments that are running 24/7. So, tough stuff, but you can do it.
Yep, exactly. You can do it. It's not impossible. And then I guess just to close out, just a quick thing on food. We kind of touched on this earlier. If someone is not eating till 2 p.m., there's a big likelihood that they're having another meal after sunset, which is also going to phase shift their circadian rhythm, because food is a Zeitgeber, secondary timekeeper. And so if you're eating too close to bedtime after sunset, there are a lot of programs that you're blocking from running in the body, melatonin secretion being one of them, because when you eat, a little bit of cortisol is secreted. It's not a bad thing. It's to kind of help with the digestion process, but it is going to delay your body's ability to repair, for your body temperature to drop.
The body temperature is huge. Yeah.
The body temperature is huge. Like anytime when I used to wear the Oura ring, anytime I would have a snack before bed, I would always get the alert the next day. Well, you just didn't recover as well as you could have. And I'm like, dang it, I ate that snack before bed. And they're like, your body temperature was elevated last night. Are you getting sick? I'm like, no, I just was snacking.
Just had some snacks before bed.
Eating.
I mean, and again, is like, here's the deal too, right? Like, do I every once in a while have something before bed? Absolutely. Does Sarah? Obviously, she just said it, right? Absolutely. And so what we just want you to be aware, right? Exactly. If you do that and have garbage sleep, or you don't feel like you had as deep of sleep, or you're not as recovered, that's why, right? Because eating our food is also, like you said, a timing mechanism in the body, and the body keys in on. And so ideally, I like to go to bed, well, at least, with not have food at least 3 hours before bed would be my general recommendation. I try to always eat between sunrise and sunset, if not a little before sunset.
I like to eat earlier.
If honestly, like, the what is it? I hope this doesn't get me in trouble. We used to call it like the old people specials at the buffet. Like in
Yes.
college, we would go to like, the 4 p.m. senior
Oh
hour.
yeah. I'm about that. I
Yeah,
love
but
that.
give me 3 p.m. 3 p.m. I like that would be perfect. If I could finish my last meal at 3 p.m.
Oh yeah.
That it just feels good.
Beautiful. It feels really good. You wake up the next morning, you're hungry, you have energy, you're just like, yes,
I had a great
like,
night's sleep. Yeah, all that stuff.
yeah.
All
And
that
if you
stuff.
can, if you're somebody who's like, I can't do that, like I'm super, like I get hungry, I wake up with low blood sugar,
We
then we
used
need
to
to,
too. We got it.
yeah,
We
yeah.
can coach. So go, yeah, give them some recommendations. That's fine.
Well, I mean, you got to work on your blood sugar overall, and you got to work on leptin resistance because that's a
Mhm.
big sign that you're leptin resistant. And you got to work on stabilizing your blood sugar and becoming more fat adapted. Your body is meant to go into ketosis when you're
At night.
sleeping. You're
Mhm.
meant to switch back and forth between fuel sources. We're not supposed to just be one way or the other way all the time. And if you're like having to snack before bed, or and if you don't eat before bed, you wake up in the middle of the night like hungry, that's an issue. That means you're not fat adapted. Your body is like metabolically inefficient. Like, and I'm not trying to like, I was there for most of my life, right?
Yeah.
Most of my, and as a kid, like my mom would like make us milkshakes before bed. I'm like, oh, I don't know why I'm obese. Like, like that's how we grew up was you got to have the bedtime snack. And, but it's actually not, it's not good for your health, to be snacking before bed and to be eating multiple times a day either.
Yeah, no, I ideally we're eating distinct meals. I do remember my grandparents, I remember just talking to them about this and being like, well, what does your eating look like? And this is when I was in like nutrition master's program. And it was like, well, what did you snack on? We didn't have snacks.
Right. Right.
Right. It was like, what did you do when you came home from school? Nothing. We waited till dinner. We played outside and then
Right. You go
mom
outside
pulled
and
us in for
play.
dinner.
Right.
Right.
Get UVA, stimulate alpha MSH is an appetite suppressant. Like go
There you go.
outside,
There
ground,
you
get the
go.
free energy from the earth, get your electrons. Like, yeah,
All
that's
the things. Snacking it's such a modern construct. That's a fascinating one. Yeah.
it
Now
really
I'm certain there was like foraging, right? Where you would forage
right.
on little tiny things and chew on some tubers and stuff, but that
Right.
doesn't even compare to
What we do
what we have
now
the
with
ability to snack on.
juice and snack. Yeah, like the packaged foods. And the woman, I love her to death, that helps me out with my son during the day so I can podcast and get things done till about 3 p.m. every day. So it's not like all day long, but she's been like, well, she'll send me pictures. Can we give this to him? And it's like these baby puffs. And I'm like, no, I'm not giving that to him. But what about these veggie straws? No, I don't want to give him that. Like we just stick to like meat, fruits, like, maybe some ancestral grains if we do any at all. But like
Sure.
I'm not trying to give him like puffs and snacks and all the junk that they give babies. Like it's completely unnecessary. He's never had the teething crackers. Like give him a bone to chew on, right? Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. I mean, the kids need to chew. We all need to chew.
yeah.
Babies when they're able to, they need to chew. They need
Yep.
to suck first and then they need to chew. And gosh, it's a whole nother topic. Who can we talk to about airway development?
Oh, I know. Maybe Jalal would come on and talk
Oh
to it.
yeah, Jalal probably
Yeah.
would. He'd be
Yeah.
awesome to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah. Since we just did the episode with Kelly, but
Mhm.
yeah, we have to kind of like shift our ideas around a lot of this stuff because the messaging that's out there, in kind of the mainstream is like snacks, food pyramid, maybe you're this chronotype, you're a night out, like you have this
Yeah.
diagnosis, you are this, like let's label you. And like if you just want to be, I don't know, I don't want to sound like tinfoil hat person, but I guess I kind of am undercover. Um, if you want to
Undercover.
undercover, I'm reasonable. I'm open-minded.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
very open-minded, but like, I'm not going to be subservient and just be told, this is you, this is your diagnosis. This is how you should eat. This is how you should do it because the government or whoever is saying. Like, I want to see what makes sense on the level of circadian biology and quantum biology. I want to look at it from that lens rather than like, here's the recommendations for people, like I
Yeah.
question things. And
It's
so
like blood ranges, right? Blood
right.
ranges most people don't realize that blood ranges for markers, blood markers are set based on the lab and the people who are getting their blood drawn.
Mhm.
And
And the time of day and then what you even ate before, like
what I'm saying is the range of normal, right?
Right.
The normal range is set on people who actually get their blood drawn more. And people typically who are tracking disease markers are the ones who are getting their blood drawn more. So we're not necessarily comparing our blood markers against a healthy population, even, right? So there's so many things that are just kind of not really lining up for how I want to take care of my body in response to different things. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, I think I mentioned a couple episodes ago, there was a lady in my group who was like, I'm like, well, if you're having all these symptoms, have you had a fasting leptin tested? Have you had a fasting insulin tested? She's like, oh yeah, my doctor says both of them are normal. I'm like, well, what would you share those numbers with me? And I think her fasting insulin was like a 14 and her leptin was in the 20s. And I was like, those are not like, that is not normal. That is actually, that's elevated. That's moving you towards the, you're definitely leptin resistant, not a medical, advice or diagnosis, but like that, those markers are within what I would say is somebody that's dealing with leptin resistance and moving towards full-blown insulin resistance. It's not normal. But again, these markers are based on a population of unhealthy people who are getting a lot of blood work done. So,
and also too, in terms of leptin, what's fascinating is the number of super low leptins that I'll see too. That's also considered. There is no low end of the leptin range on most blood work that I see. Right. And so it's like, wait, you're trying to conceive, but your leptin is a 2.5, right? Like that's low, right? That's low.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that's a whole
other topic.
Exactly. And you and I are not like, we don't love talking about food so much, but
or blood work for that matter.
No, we don't. I really just like, no, please don't. But it is something that you can look at and that needs to sometimes be manipulated, but we have to look at it with context.
A snapshot in the greater picture. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, interesting stuff. So, I mean, so round this out to say, like, if you've been a classified night owl your whole life and you want to try to shift this earlier, give it a try. Right? Just see if you can line up your timing based on the light signaling. And again, we talked about the nighttime with the blue blockers. First thing in the morning, I don't care if you sleep in until 9 a.m. as you're shifting your rhythm. Go outside immediately. Right? Yep. Immediately. No scrolling on the phone, right? Just go outside immediately and signal the time of day. Yep. And then that little clock in your brain starts ticking, and it starts to anticipate. And eat something. And then eat something. Yeah. Eat something. Exactly. Yeah. Sync those signals up first thing.
It's possible.
It is.
All right. Well, this was fun. Hopefully I didn't go off on too many tangents today, but hopefully some people got some good information out of this and maybe we dispelled some myths around this, night owl thing. So, all right. Well, we'll see you on the next episode.